Just do the question and answer. I asked a question about 62 lines on page 79, line 6220 festival expense, and why it was new in 2018 actual, and apparently it used to be done.
Eric, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So the festival expense it originated in community relations in sometime in the 90s, sometime in 2000 it went into Fund 50 for a short time. And then the decision was made to move it back into community relations. So for a short time, it was in Fund 50 for a while.
Sure. This is, but just, you weren't here for this. We're trying to blow through some of the smaller stuff. And right now we're in administration, and she was talking about community services. So she only had one question. So if you have something about that, by all means ask. But I just wanted to make sure that you know where we were. Yeah.
Can you envision a point where we need to look at Brentwood days and charge something so that we have more revenue coming in and it's not all outgo?
That is a committee question that has been asked multiple times. That is, I think, something that the board has to tackle, to be honest.
What is the question?
Charging admission
It
to
came
the
up
being
So that was taken up at the, do you want to address that?
Well, the Public Works took it up at this year's committee. Alderman Lockmueller's here, and the discussion was that because so many people shop in Brentwood and contribute to the tax base, that we would keep it free for this year for.
So it will not be a revenue expense in the near future.
It's been brought up 3 times since I've been here.
Thank you.
And so, does that conclude the sort of administration topic of the budget? Do you have any other questions on that subject matter? Okay, and so judicial does not present,
No.
so we can check that off. Are there any questions on in the legislative department that maybe we can tackle in short order?
I only tapped some of them, so.
That would be page. I'm trying to
legislative?
knock out the
Okay.
smaller things. So
Where's legislative?
legislative is on page 98.
Oh, 98. I'm going back. Okay. I'm just going now. Yes, they are. No.
Okay.
I mean, if you have questions for judicial, I'm happy
Yeah,
to
no, I
forward
mean,
it to
and
the,
again,
judge.
By all means, I want to make sure your questions are asked and answered, but I'm trying to see if we could,
No.
don't feel like you need to make up a question if you don't have one. Okay, and so with that, we will turn to Parks and Rec. And I'd take some feedback. I think of Brentwood Bound as being under Parks and Rec.
No, I mean, it shows up under Parks and Rec, but really it's under administration.
Yeah.
It's under I oversee the project.
I'm thinking just so
In terms of the budget?
in terms of organization of questions only.
So
That
he can't answer any
do
Brentwood bound questions. Craig and I would do that, and he's not here.
Please ask. I won't answer any.
Okay, so we don't.
So don't ask Brentwood bound questions today.
We don't have someone that can answer Brentwood
That's
bound
right.
questions. So we have Parks and Rec questions,
Right.
non-Brentwood bound.
Right.
Okay.
So, with that, again, Eric,
Great.
high-level summary, big-ticket items,
Sure.
things not on, and then we'll kick into questions.
I have a few things. I mean, the one thing is, as you guys just mentioned, Fund 50 is a little bit harder to decipher, obviously, because of the inclusion of Brentwood Bound. But beyond that, our goal in Parks and Recreation is to bring forward a balanced budget. We've done that. We've done that since 2013. Our goal is always to kind of budget and deliver a year-end increase in fund balance. That's always our goal. This practice did allow us to cash fund $2 million for the renovation of the Brentwood Recreation Complex. I'll talk a little bit about revenue, just because our revenue is a little bit different than the rest of the cities. If you do look at revenue on page 118, it does fluctuate a little bit from year to year. 2 main reasons for this is the first is weather, and that usually typically only fluctuates year end. So if you see a little bit downturn in revenue, it's usually sports or park permits, and that usually is completely due with weather. So This year in particular, we had a lot of rain in the spring and early summer, so you saw park permits and sports leagues go down because we had a lot of cancellations, things like that. The other big fluctuation is anytime we have to do yearly maintenance for the ice rink. We did not close down the ice rink this year because of we want to make sure we're open for the centennial. We do have to go down next year. We usually go down every other year in the ice rink, make sure all the systems get a good check, make sure we clean out the sand, things like that. And so you see maybe a little bit downtick in revenue because of that. But basically, the other thing is fees and charges account for over $1 million of revenue for the department. That's been a steady increase of almost $200,000 since 2013. So we have seen an uptick in revenue and fees and charges from the department. So that's a good thing. Going to expenditures, which start, I believe, on 119. Personnel services, the entire line did see a 7% increase, again, for two main reasons. The first is Missouri minimum wage increase. So Missouri minimum wage increase from $816,945 in 2020. This is a 9.88% increase. Skate guards is our biggest minimum wage user, so they basically start out at minimum wage, so we have to increase all their salaries. We also have other positions like building managers who start a little bit higher, but because the skate guards are coming in at a higher increase, we recommend moving them up so that there's not that compression. We also see other market jobs around us, the similar type jobs in Clayton and Richmond Heights, and all of our like jobs are starting those type of positions higher, so we want to move those up. And then if you look at places like Target and McDonald's, they're also starting those positions higher, so if we don't push that job a little bit higher, we're not going to find those people to help us out with those building managers. The other is our full-time salary line increased a little bit. And the big reason for that is the federal government raised the threshold for employees to earn overtime from $23,660 to $35,568. So we have 8 exempt employees in primarily the recreation side. So this is people who run programming for the department. So we had 2 that fell underneath the threshold, the assistant program coordinators. And we talked to Jason, and Jason talked to Linda Higbee, and the suggestion made from Linda was reclassify the assistant program coordinator position to program coordinators and reclassify the program coordinators to recreation supervisors. So that's what we showed in the budget. And I don't know if Jason has any additions to that, or if anyone has any questions to Jason about that aspect of it. If not, I'll move on, or if you have questions.
I was trying to remember if we had talked about this and then as a board had said no, and we did not want the hires because of financial concerns, but renaming the position does the same.
We do that throughout the year. That's what we're trying to do in administration with the finance assistant, finance director. So as a matter of practice, anytime that there is a vacancy, we take another look at the duties and responsibilities of that position. We try to see, okay, is there gaps in level of service? So that is what we try to do. But what we brought to the board earlier was it a reclassification, or wasn't a reclassification?
No, it wasn't reclass. It was moving.
It was moving salary.
Moving grids.
Moving positions on the salary grid.
Yeah.
This is completely different.
Okay.
And this is based on federal law.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I don't know if you have any questions for Jason. He's the one who.
May I ask if the positions that we talked about at the board meeting that you were wanting to move the grid, were they these positions?
They are.
So it's a different way around the same.
Well, but we had no control over federal law changing regarding how you calculate overtime.
Yeah, the 2 positions in question were the assistant program coordinators. They started at $28,000. They're currently an exempt level position. Going forward, they would not be allowed to be exempt, which would mean we would have to completely restructure the manner in which those individuals work. We'd have to put them on a different pay cycle, and an inordinate number of issues with regards to that. So the easiest thing to do was to simply move them to the next highest threshold, which is what we did. And by classifying them as program coordinators in lieu of assistant program coordinators, it more closely represents the actual work that they're doing per the discussion that we had with Linda Higbee to begin with. So it's more, it brings them in line with what their job actually is with our comparator cities, and has the secondary factor of hitting the thresholds that are required by federal law.
So cost-wise, is it more cost-effective to put them at a higher level and not pay them overtime? Or would they still get overtime at the program coordinator level?
That, I mean, it's very similar because the amount of time that we work in the field, I mean, we've had a lot of comparable cities who've done different ways. And what typically happens is that you have one of two different things, is that you either make them clock in and clock in and basically hit the 40 hours and then you lose productivity, or you basically pay the extra amount and you pay more for the overtime. So I've seen both ways. My counterparts in different cities have talked about different ways, is that you lose them because they've worked their 40 hours to basically Thursday, and then you lose them on Friday, or you're paying the extra amount that you would have paid them to jump them up to the extra level in overtime. So it's half dozen one or the other, basically.
So will they now be exempt when you moved them?
They're exempt now. If we move them, they will remain exempt.
Okay. And not eligible for overtime?
Correct.
More questions on that?
Not on that.
Not yet, but-
Okay, I continue.
It's which is why we're bringing it up, because it is kind of it's something that we were talking about, 2 years ago, and they didn't actually make that change. And we aren't expecting them to make the change, but I guess the federal government pulled the trigger on it this year, late this year. So material supplies, if you look from, there's no significant changes. Contractual, there's just a few. The biggest being the Richmond Heights Cooperative. I'll be honest, there is when we did the budget in July, we're looking at numbers of a little bit higher, and if we continue to work with them, I expect those to continue to go down.
Can I interrupt and ask a question related to that? You have phased out 6127.
Just also, please just be sure to call out the question, the page number that you're on.
Okay,
So
page 120, 6127 was the senior program, which has been eliminated. So that there is no indication of how much we are paying to Richmond Heights. If you have added that into the co-op fee, I would like to see that broken down. What does Brentwood pay for memberships versus what are we paying someone? I will talk to Public Works, I think, later about the philosophy behind this. I'm not sure the program is working, and I really don't want to see it funded this next year as it stands now. But I think if you're closing out a fund, it needs to be broken down into the fund you're putting in, which is 6310.
So could you repeat that? 6120, which is on page?
6127, we're on page 120.
Okay.
6127 has been phased to zero entry.
Yes.
There is a lump sum apparently added to 6310, which I assumed was simply the fees, membership fees that we were talking about.
6310 talks about that it includes both because the rationale moving both the membership fee and the agreement for the intergovernmental agreement for senior citizens recreation program services was that they're both the cooperative. So that's why it's in there. It's in the text.
So you want it separated?
I would like it
Okay.
separated. I
We
think
can
the
do that.
membership is
Can't we?
one thing and program
Can't
is
we do that?
something.
Yeah, I just assumed this was membership, so I didn't
Okay.
even I didn't fully comprehend.
Sure.
So we can separate it, right?
We can. I mean,
Okay.
if that's what we want to do.
Yeah. We can separate that in the narrative and
And in the funding.
in
I
the
think it should
funding.
come in separate funds.
Okay, so what this shows is an expense, right? So
Right.
what I'm hearing is she wants that to still show up where it was showing before.
Well, we've never had this year's first year we had this year, last year. I think 2019 is the first year we had the full year of the expense, and it was in 6310. So if you'd like it in a different account number line, we could put it back into
6127.
being contractual, right, which would be, I think it should be contractual, which would be 60.
We haven't had
It's-
expenses
Yeah,
in that account number 6127 since 2017.
right. So
Last time we had it was $786.
So we could still show it, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd have to change
So
it.
we'll
You
show
have
it.
to change the budget and give
Well-
it to me.
We can change it.
Thank you.
So, yeah, 6127 contractual
Okay.
would be the.
That's my
Was that the only
question.
one? Okay.
And then as far as capital, I'm not sure if you guys want me to go through each project or if you just have certain ones, but I'm happy to do whichever way you'd like it
I
to.
guess, you know, if you could do some of the big items
Sure.
and then,
So the idea
maybe have
is
questions on specific.
Brentwood Park, since MSD is finally going to be out of Brentwood Park, there's a number of projects down there that have been waiting. So the parking lot and pathway project, that asphalt is deteriorating completely. We'll package that with the street project, so hopefully we'll get better pricing on that. The pavilion and the park restroom. The thing about both of those is since those are both in floodways, the issue is that you can't just tear those down and rebuild them, so you have to work within the confines of the existing building. And so the pavilion is basically neat. There's lots of issues with that pavilion. The restroom, as part of the master plan, was to see if that building could be renovated to add either additional bathrooms, including a family restroom, or additional storage. And the idea of doing a feasibility plan is to see if it's worthwhile and cost effective. You don't want to throw money into it if you can't do it. But the current bathroom is not ADA accessible, neither one are ADA accessible, but the roof has to be replaced next year. So we want to replace the roof and then see if we can do anything with the bathrooms and make sure if it's feasible. Yes.
Quick question with that. We paid for design for the Oak Tree Park Pavilion. Is there any reason we could not use the same plan for the Hanley Pavilion and avoid the design fees?
Yes and no. If you're going to the Hanley one, a lot of the fees, the vine fees, if you're talking about the Hanley Park is that within each site, you still have a lot of work that has to be done because it's site specific. So there's geotechnical work. If you come to any of the public works when we've talked about design, is that all of the parks at one point in the past have been used for dumping, concrete, asphalt, other things. So I think in every project we've done since I've been here, there's been unsuitable soils. So you have to do geotechnical work to see what's underneath the soil to figure out what you're getting into. So every design work, you have to do that sort of geotechnical work. Because every park is in the floodplain or floodway, you have to do, because of our ordinances, you have to do floodplain permitting and MSD permitting. You have to do a no-rise flood study. You have to do a floodplain letter of map revision. So you have to do all that, no matter, even if you still use that same sort of design. The concept of what we'd like to do is like to make most of our pavilions look similar. So yeah, there is an economy of using that similar design of what's in Oak Tree, because that's what we'd like to do. So, but you can't just say, we're just going to take this package and redesign and basically bid that out. You still have to do all the site work stuff, which unfortunately costs money.
All right, thank you.
So, and the additional part of that too is the fact that part of it is to expand that parking lot, because if the other thing that came out during a lot of the master plan is that our parks don't have a lot of parking. And so that would be one of the things that was not part of the original Oak Tree thing, was to add additional parking for that site-specific area. So that's that program there. The Hanley Park Court Improvement Lighting Project, that's adding lights to the current project. We actually talked about that in Public Works. Memorial Park Busy Bee design, that's the same thing. There's the site-specific parts that we have to do.
Plead ignorance. What's a busy bee?
The Busy Bee is you, I'm sorry.
I have children. I'm not married. What happens at these places?
Sorry.
It's the little kids.
It's as you walk into Memorial Park where the bathrooms are, it's always been called the Busy Bee. I'm not sure why.
Oh, it's where the bathrooms are.
I never heard it called that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, when we redo it, we'll probably call it something else, but, yeah, because it's, I think that's right. The name when they used to have the daycare out there, that's what they used to call it.
Okay. Please continue.
The dingo, we're going to bring some native animals back to Memorial Park. Just kidding, no. So
Ate your baby.
the dingo is a piece of park maintenance equipment. The thing is that it's a piece of equipment that we don't currently have and that we rent on I didn't say regular basis, but a frequent basis. We've rented it $5,000 this year, and it does things like lifting materials, grading soil, removing sod, spreading materials, scraping flood debris. The scraping of flood debris, when you think about Brentwood Park and the amount of times that we've had to be down there, if we in the new or the new Brentwood bound location, things like that, digging post holes when we talk about putting in fencing and things like that, that would be nice.
So would you estimate that you've got like a $5,000 worth of rental that you for that? I mean, $32,000. That's one, the name, and then two, the cost. You know, as far as you think you would rent that often every year.
We would. I mean, not every year, but there's stuff that we haven't done with it. So we mulch the trails in Memorial Park every year, and we basically have to take a dump truck. We take our truck. A regular truck basically 30 times back and forth because we can only get one load of a time. We could actually basically get a bigger load because we can then use the dingo to move it across the thing, and maybe some efficiencies of time there. The other thing that this would do, if we're allowed to get it with the attachment, is we could actually start planting trees ourselves. We'd be able to take that cost away from Davy Tree because it'd have the attachment of we could actually dig the holes and start planting trees. So there are things that we don't rent it for currently now that we'd start being able to do ourselves. So it's a lot of things, efficiencies and things like that. So that's that one. The lawnmower replace it is basically we mow a lot of grass. The truck is replace it, and then the survey services is what we did. We split costs, half in my budget and half in the capital budget. So that is, I'm happy to answer a lot of questions.
Who wants to go first?
I don't
You
have
two.
any further questions.
Okay,
No,
so
I do.
Nancy, take it away. And if, again, just it's
So
like being in a deposition. Just
I'm
say
on
the
page
number.
119, and I'm looking at the salary line. So,
Which number? So
total
6,000.
salary, I'm looking at the line, the subtotal line below 6070.
Okay.
And so, as you already stated, you sort of explained why it went up from last year, but I'm really curious why why salaries have gone up from actual 2018, almost 20%.
And again, you've talked about Missouri, the big thing is you're talking about the Missouri minimum wage increase, 2 straight years. So Missouri minimum wage is going to increase for multiple years from now on. So that's going to, for your part-time lines, those are going to be your biggest increases. So that's why a lot of the part-time lines have been increasing. The full-time lines have been basically going up 3% each year. You'll see the increase for next year based on what we talked about with Jason.
Okay, so, but $285,000 worth of part-time people and a salary? I mean, are your I don't have number of employees from 2018. Did you hire new people for the century celebration, and then are they not?
So it's a combination of things. It's full-time salaries, merit increase that's budgeted, and then you add up all the part-time salaries.
The other thing, which I'm sorry, I failed to mention, is that we actually, if you look at 2018, your rank program staff, you notice how ring programming, again, it's delta's about $20,000, but we went from a in-house hockey official line to contractual. So all of our hockey officials went from in-house to contractual, so that.
So then that leaves us with 265.
Sorry,
I mean, it's just a
another one.
lot, it's a huge number increase on salaries in 2 years in one department that has 21 employees.
Well, some of it, when you talk about actual to budget, is we're talking about, we do have some times where we have.
Open, you have open
Right,
positions, so
open
that's-
positions,
yeah.
so, and if you look at staffing the last few years, and we talked about this when we talked about last time, is we've had a number of open positions due to a lot of the things we talked about back when we talked about trying to raise salaries. So I've had a lot of open full-time positions. So when you talk about actual to budget, I'm budgeting to be fully staffed for the entire year, where I can name at least 1 or 2 full-time staff people who've been gone for an extended period of time throughout 18 and 19. So right now, I currently have 2 staff people I have 2 staff vacancies right now. So in 18, we had 2 or 3 for an extended period of time.
So are you getting your park work done without these people?
No, I mean, it's a struggle to keep up, but we do the best we can.
I mean, you're 100,000 up from budget, and then 285 up from actual from 2 years ago. It just seems like huge percentages, different from any other department.
Eric, when did parks go from public works to you, or no? They went to parks. They went from you. Didn't public works
to
people
parks.
go over to you?
No, that was in 16,
It was?
so.
I guess since we're meeting again Monday, I would be sort of curious what the differences are from 18 to now. It's just such a large number, 280,
We can provide more detailed
286,000.
information.
Yeah, I would be curious to see the difference. I have more questions. On the next page, page 120, line 6126, recreation program special events. I had sort of, when I looked at this, now I'm new, so I looked at this, and I looked at the budget line for 20, went up 10,000 from 18. And I just assume, I look at this, I'm like, special event is that additional century things, but then it's even up now $2,000, $17,000 proposed for 2020. So what is that special event line?
Yeah, it is events for, so last year, obviously, we bumped it up for the centennial. And obviously what we found is that people enjoyed a lot of the events. So what we're trying to do is continue the momentum we had. And so we not increased from last year, but we increased from the previous years and trying to keep some of those events. So if you're 6126, I believe is what you said. Sorry, I want to get to, so I can give you exact some of the things that we talked about. So we have things like, so the Sweetheart Dance, music on the menu is a part of that. Movie at the Firehouse, we have to buy the movies. Party in the Patch. And then what we're really trying to do is one of the community celebrations, so like the Pizza in the Park, which was a really big event, but it's a free event. And then we're trying to keep one of the other big ones. So this year we're going to do the foam party again, which was a hugely popular one, but that is a fairly expensive event. So we're trying to keep that, and because we can fit it within our budget, give back to the community in that way. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's great to have all those events. It just seems like last year was so great, and then if you're only going to keep some of them, and it's still gone up $2,000.
But we're trying to combat that with sponsorship as well. So we're trying to increase our sponsorship line as well a little bit to help with those events.
Advertising. So this is line 6160. So I'm still, I sort of am looking back at 18 to 19 because there was a big jump in a lot of things there, and I wasn't here, and I would just assume that was for the centennial. Like advertising's gone up from last year from 12,007 to 14. It's not a huge increase, but why is advertising gone up?
Sure. What we're trying to do is continue to find different ways to advertise. And one of the big push for our advertising team, we really don't have a team. We have two people. Molly, who's our operations superintendent, and Amber, who's our new special events and marketing person, would like to do is they asked to put in park kiosks, so bigger park kiosks where you can actually put some signs up there, get some better wayfinding along there. And so we added that in there for this year. We added some additional dollars for some retractable banners that you've been seeing around the things that people have started noticing our events. So we've increased the advertising budget for those couple of reasons right there. Again, that was the reason.
Well, it's just up, like, that's another one, it's up 10,000 from 2 years ago, so just question the large expense.
Don't move on, can I explain the kiosk? This is an outdoor kiosk?
Yeah, it's an outdoor kiosk that, whether it's two-sided or three-sided, one side could be a map of the park and especially wayfinding around the park. Another side would be basically upcoming events. A third side could be, hopefully it's something with more city-related, whether it's, something police-related, something fire, sustainability, something like that.
And where would this be located?
That we wanted to make sure we got through the budget process first before we went too crazy, but we're looking at different places throughout the parks, one in each park, but we're really focused on one or two. Memorial Park, the easiest places as you converge either to the inline rink or down to the parks.
So this is a want item, sort of like, gee, it'd be nice to have this. It's not that there's been a request for this sort of thing.
I think, it's not a, if you think about whether it's needed, the idea is that we're trying to, again, create more knowledge about what's going on in the park.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm getting into little lines, but like printing, more than, well, it's about doubled. This is line 6375.
Printing is...
So why are we printing in the world of online?
Printing, the big cost for printing is for the brochure, and the brochure cost has gone up from last year. And industry standard says that still 65% of people get their information from your brochure. So.
Can you explain the 6280 birthday party expense? What is that?
That is all the items that we need for our birthday parties on the ice rink. So paper products, so your napkins, your plates, your forks, your
So these are people who rent out to have.
Yep. So they pay for it, and then we basically provide the small things like that.
And then I think my last question is, at the full Board of Aldermen meeting last week, we talked about potentially adding a fence at Memorial Park.
Yeah.
And where is that? And then
Sure.
could there, along with that, presumably, I don't know if there's money that's needed to have a discussion about what kind of fence makes sense, and does it make sense to have just a partial fence? Does it make sense to have a full fence? Does it make sense to have a fence at all? I know that's a committee level question, but is it cost to study that, or is that something you can do?
I don't think there needs to be a study of that. I think we take the discussion from Public Works and then just implement that.
Okay, perfect.
So it's in Materials, Supplies, and Parks 6421. I know that it's 100,000, so it's a big thing, but any sort of park project that's not considered a capital project, we have a park project list, and it's in there.
There's 6421.
On page 119,
119.
6421. So that fence would come out of that
Yep.
fund, or that line.
So I guess we could revisit the salaries, and then I may have
Yes,
to
we'll
wrap my
bring
head
that
around
back
this
on
kiosk
Monday.
thing too. So,
Is there a follow-up that needs to happen on the other questions you asked, like marketing and advertising and birthday party? Or are you comfortable with his response?
it's a lot of money that we're adding. Are we getting that many? I guess I would appreciate some information about.
We'll bring additional information
Just
on.
additional information, what those mean.
Okay.
What the, if we're getting increased people for those dollars.
What we'll probably do with a lot of the questions that require follow-up is once we have them, we'll push them out
Perfect.
prior to the next
Right,
meeting.
great. And I guess I have still have one last question. On page 109, the performance measures. So can you explain the percentage cost recovery for all programs?
Yeah, so we basically, one of the things we look at is we look at how much revenue we get based on the expenditures we pay for programs. And so there are some programs that in the theory of Parks and Recreation, you look at an inverted pyramid of programming. So there are some programs that are a community benefit that you don't expect to make as much money for, and throwing things like skate lessons. So you want to basically break even. There's some that are highly specialized that you expect that will be a little bit more expensive and pay a little bit more, and those are private skating lessons, those type of things. And so that's kind of how we kind of plan our cost recovery. And so this just tracks where we are throughout the entire year.
So
Special events brought us down this year.
Yeah, so it's.
So because we track special events too.
It seems that we used to recover more than the cost of programs to the tune of 134% 2 years ago, and this year we're at 77%. Next year we're going down to 66%. So clearly there's a lot more expenses in here that we're not recovering for the programs we're having.
And again, what I said, the thing is special events. When we talk about providing a couple of free events for the community, that's what brings it down.
Yeah, but if we did it this year,
and
then it's. I mean, I'll have to look at the revenue line again to see why the math is like that, but it seems we had such amazing events this year, and to think that we're going to recover even less money next year when we had such a, I mean, you didn't, I sounds really negative here, like the parks, the stuff that was done this year was awesome, and I have a lot of younger kids, and they didn't go to all the things, but they really enjoyed it, so I applaud all the work that was done with you and your team to provide those things for our citizens. But I just think we need to be thoughtful about the cost of those things and about how many people are coming and the value and
we are. I mean, and like I said when I started, I mean, we are very conscientious about bringing in an increase in our net bottom line, and I've done that every year. I mean, it is my goal, like I said, to continue to do so. We added $50,000 to stormwater this year because we know there are stormwater projects that need to get done throughout the city. We continue to do that so that we build a fund balance. It's impossible to see because of Brentwood Bound, but we did that, and we're able to cash fund $2 million for this renovation. We're able to take money out of the fund balance for stormwater projects, and it's because of being fiscally responsible and being looking at our budgets and having staff who are dedicated to that same principle. So I'm not trying to.
If the board thinks that there's a threshold that we need to obtain or target, it'd be nice to know what that is.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, being new to this and new to part, like, I don't know what a threshold should be. It's such a change in 2 years.
I mean, do you want it 100%? Do you want it 90, 80?
What kind of programs could we provide? Like, how do we compare ourselves to other cities who provide great programming? Do other cities provide similarly fabulous programming and recapture 100%? I don't know. Like, I don't know anything to compare it to. So
yeah, we can provide that information, and a good example would be the Heights. I think that organization understands that they're not going to do cost recovery 100% of that cost. Therefore, that's why they have partnership with us. And some of them they have partnership with businesses in our town as well. So it just really depends on the philosophy of the board. Do you never expect to have 100% recovery, but 70% would be ideal. But we can definitely show programs that we have in comparison to others. But the exception is the fact that we had a centennial year.
Right, but the exception. So I
it.
sort of went into this thinking, oh yeah, it was a centennial year, so it's not going to be as much, and almost everything was more.
Right.
So that's sort of that's what I found.
We'll provide a response.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm a little confused about the Centennial Foundation paying for some things and Parks paying for some things. I had obviously wrongly assumed that there would be everything sourced out of the Centennial Fund, but it looks as though you have done some things independently without being part of the Centennial Fund. Do we get an accounting eventually of?
So there were funds in the community services section of administration. 25, I think 25,000 or 20?
25.
How much was it?
About
20, okay. 20,000 that the board allocated to the Brentwood Centennial Foundation to help them pay for all their programming, which is completely different from the programs that the city put on, which were funded out of the Parks Department and the Stormwater Fund, an improvement.
So it's not duplication?
So it's different things, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
I am too.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
So what is left in terms of what just so I have an idea of what Monday's gonna look like?
What is left would be Brentwood Bound.
Brentwood Bound, okay.
And
I mean,
Eric's really
obvious-
glad he's not answering
Yeah,
those
I'll take a
questions.
little
I mean,
while.
obviously,
So,
but
unless
like,
and I haven't heard that you are recommending any changes other than where we left off at the last meeting to find funds to pay for the 2 additional officers.
I want to be ready with answers.
Right.
That becomes.
That's it.
I just don't want it to be at the board level and they're like, I'm going to make an oral motion to do that. I mean, I would like to
So
be
that
ready.
you
for
have a chance
yeah.
to do that.
Um,
What's the next meeting? The 25th.
It's the 25th,
So,
but the
yeah.
public safety will not have met. So, I mean, I just wanted to have something in the wings
So public safety
deal with.
meets 30
day
minutes
after.
before. Is it?
Right,
25th.
Steve? Aren't we doing it
When
on the
is this?
26th?
It's Tuesday. This one's Tuesday.
We're doing it
Public
Tuesday.
safety's Tuesday.
But safety
No,
is
it's been
Tuesday.
changed to the 25th. I thought I
What?
saw an email. It's been changed to the 25th.
So the same day.
What's the 25th?
What, Public Safety Committee meeting at 5:30?
Not right.
So right,
Yeah.
so right before Ways and
So will
Means.
we have something, I mean, if I got another budget with all that stuff cut out, it would need to be line item to red line or something.
Yes, it will be.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Whoa, what did we just say? I'm listening to them.
Well, there was a request for a recommendation to fund 2 additional police officers. So the request was that police and fire meet and give you
Right.
an option. So we're gonna have to share that information with them.
Right.
Right.
So not Ways and Means. The public safety's meeting the same day.
The
right now?
25th at 5:30.
So before Ways and Means?
So
Okay.
all that's gonna come out of that committee, I think, is a
No,
recommendation to public safety.
We're at 6.
We're
I
meeting
have-
at 4 o'clock.
Oh, we
Oh,
are
that's
meeting at
right.
4.
We're meeting
Oh,
at
are
4.
we?
Yes, that's what
Wait.
we set up,
Oh,
which is good.
Way I have Ways and Means is starting at 5. Is it 4? 4's fine. I don't, maybe I just
The
have it.
latest that came through was 4.
What did you all have?
let me check.
I have 4,
So that's
At,
on
on the 20,
5th.
Which is
Monday.
25th.
yeah, I have it at 4.
Yeah, okay, that's just me. I'm available, but, but still so Ways and Means starts at 4. I thought public safety was the 26th, so now it's the
So did I.
25th. Because we won't have what time does that start?
5:30.
So, I guess an hour and a half. Public safety committee, since Tom's out of town, I don't believe we'll have a quorum unless I'm there.
Are you not gonna be there?
No, I'm planning on being
Oh,
there,
so
but I
it
can't be in 2 places at once.
Oh,
So that, you know.
I'll get back with the committee chair. We might have to revisit that because, I mean, he can meet with members of public safety. I won't be there either. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't,
it's not an ideal time. It won't work. So we'll ask him to reconsider another time.
yeah, and I wasn't
I didn't make that.
loving the
connection
idea
either.
of doubling up.
It could be much later or earlier.
But, so we have Brentwood Bound, we have some follow-up questions.
Yes.
And we wanted to be ready with options.
Yes.
If we were, told to find,
Right.
space for 2 hires in the police department. And then are there other subject matters that we need to cover? Because that sounds like what we're down to.
I have a couple, I've been reading policy and I have a couple questions, but I think there are things that have been in there before but have never been noticed, so I think email can take care of a lot of
Perfect.
that.
Yes, thank you.
And, yeah, to the extent to which, you're able to, get questions answered, then we'll bring forward relevant things to the committee.
Any
but-
elected official that asks questions, I will share our response
Okay.
with the entire board.
And I would encourage other members of the board, as I did at the last meeting, that to the extent you have questions, please submit them, and we'll work through those as well. So, let's see. We don't have any new business. Do we have any citizens' comments? No. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're done. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Like, I'm gonna meet with Andy tomorrow, I think.
Maybe we should.
And sometimes what they're doing. No, we can meet in here. And sometimes what they do.
I love to listen to music,
is
but I